really a great honor to be a participant and having this online conference about Hungary. This is a new experience for us, and focusing Hungary in the BSc market. It's a great opportunity to introduce our management and our centers here, and we believe that in Hungary we already have a mature market with long history of business service centers, and this specific event is quite unique because we have the opportunity to introduce service centers with different maturity level. And the other opportunity here is to introduce Hungarian managers, because back to the history of the business service centers, it used to be managed by expatriate foreign directors, and now it also shows the maturity of the Hungarian business center market, that the majority of the centers are already managed by Hungarian management. So I hand over the stage to Richard Ranki, who is the managing director of the Hungarian Outsourcing Association, and he will be the host for the today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Balázs. Balázs is Mr. Balázs Géna, the president of our association. Thank you very much. And thank you all, to all gentlemen for being here and sharing the conference with us. And also thank you for Tom Barnhart for inviting us to have this session, to have this panel discussion, introduce Hungarian managers, and let's hear some words about their opinion and their experiences gained throughout the years managing different centers and being in different positions. So let me introduce to you our guest for today, Mr. Balazs Sooki-Toth, who is the managing director for Sanofi Business Services. Then I would like to introduce you Mr. István Lenk, who is the managing director for Eaton Business Service Center in Budapest. Mr. Peter Csucska, who is the managing director for Lexmark for Budapest and also another center in the Philippines. And I would like to introduce to Mr. Csaba Szende, who has vast experience in managing different centers, and he's a BSc expert in Hungary. So we asked them to talk about their experiences and what they learned throughout the years. First of all, please introduce yourselves, your companies, your centers, and tell us some hints you think it is proper to know when you are managing a center in Hungary. Thank you very much. So please, Balazs Sooki-Toth from Sanofi Business Services.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Richard, and thank you for the invitation, and welcome all of you with the interest of our panel discussions. My name is Balazs Sooki-Toth. I'm head of Sanofi Business Services Budapest Center. Sanofi has globally 2 service centers, one in Kuala Lumpur covering Asia Pacific, and one recently being built in Budapest covering Europe, North America, and aside these regions, we host global roles and COEs, Center of Excellence functions within the center. Our center was funded or started last year, so we are just a year over the kickoff. We had 100 people already recruited, joined our organization in 2019. We are objecting to grow to 200 this year, and we are targeting to come to 300, 350 range. The 2 sentences to add, Sanofi Business Services was implemented already 3 years back in the countries. So we have been operating as a service organization country by country, and 2019 was the date when it was decided and we started to consolidate the functions and build up the center in Budapest. Our center covers financial services and people services, financial side, account to report and customer invoice to cash, the 2 end-to-end processes, and employee experience, which provides HR services to the organizations. And that said, relevant COEs are part of the organization. And recently, we are building up a small ITS hub to get the relevant ITS business partners co-located with us to maximize the process knowledge, the process system knowledge, and getting the system expertise as well next to each other. Thank you. I can't hear you.
I have to mute myself, sorry. So you are at the beginning of your maturity and your lifespan. So this is the first.
Absolutely, we are in the middle of the transition, just in the early phase.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Balázs? No.
Not from my side yet.
Okay, thank you. So I would thank you, Balázs. Then we are going to go on. István, please tell us who you are and how long have you been in this position and working in the GBS or BSc scene in Hungary. Mute, but mute-olva vagy. So you're mute. Sorry.
Again, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's now okay.
So start again. So good morning. My name is István Lenk. I joined Eaton 5 years ago, and I have various experiences in the shared service industry. I've been working in different shared service centers before in different areas, gained experiences in customer service, finance, HR services, and project management, which is an essential part when we start building a new center. Eaton is a power management company and operating in 175 countries or even more already. And our main activity is to manufacture energy efficient products and provide the necessary solutions to mainly B2B customers worldwide to use the power in electrical, hydraulics, and mechanical areas. So we started. This is a startup, still a startup with 100 years experience, which is valid for Eaton, but the first service center for Eaton, especially in the EMEA region, was established 5 years ago in Budapest. We started with a very small scope at that time, and it's a hybrid center, and it's a captive one. So we are serving EMEA internal and to some extent external customers in main areas. Electrical is one of the biggest area what we have in the region, and we started to build a customer care. We started to build technical support, which is a special one to the European customers. Together with other functions, we have hydraulics completely the same, and also started to build finance service center or finance area, which is again a European one, including tax, treasury, transfer price, and some others which are related to the finance family, but these are the big ones. And together with supply chain is again a big area what we are covering. And we started with small, then we started to build scale and build in different languages and different support areas. And now we use different multiple center areas and multiple towers which support in parallel, of course, support the local market. We have 650 people today, and most of these people sit in the electrical and the corporate segment. And important for us is that the diversity piece, because we are pretty new in the market. Still, I consider it's new, and more than 60% of our employees are female. But still, with with that, most of the managerial roles are occupied by the female population as well. Internationally, we are pretty good, so we have many languages which we need to definitely to cover the local market, and that's really the ones that we serve within the region. What we think important is scalability, and this is our current state, and also together with the languages and the new transfers that we are still continue to do is something what we need to do to build further scale standardization and do some transformational stuff to build more and generate more value in the center, which is an additional add to those people who come to us to work as an employer. It's an add, and also for those who we serve internally and externally. Mainly that's it at this point. Any question?
Thank you very much, István. Any question? So we are going to go on. Please, Peter Csucska from Lexmark. We are going through the maturity phases, 1 year, 5 years. Please, Peter, tell us how long have you been on the market, and how, please introduce yourself and your company.
Thank you, Richard. You said you're on the beginning of your life cycle to Balazs. I hope you're not going to tell me that we are at the end of our life cycle.
No. You are maturing.
What we have in Budapest, first of all, Lexmark. Lexmark is a printing solutions market leader, headquartered in Lexington, Kentucky, with an Asian investor background. We are in Budapest since 11 years, so I trust that can be counted as a mature operations. Since the very beginning, we had a mix of transactional, that means language, and high value add, that's not language dependent. And this didn't change much. However, the ratio of high value add increased every year. What is also needs to be noted is we are not a huge center, mid-sized, around 300 plus. And we have a pretty diverse mix for such a not big center. We have order to cash, we have some global sourcing, we have some supply chain, which is logistics and production planning. We have a big services organization that working with our partners and vendors across Europe. We also have a unique business that is specific to Lexmark, all the back office and front office of managed print services when we are leasing the printers, working with the customers, key accounts, and back office part of that. Also, we have lead to contract and marketing. On the finance side, most transactional activities we have in Philippines, and in Budapest we have FP&A and more complex accounting activities too. And we have a small IT team and small HR team on top of it. So it's pretty diverse mixed. And we went through the usual live stages of the evolution. And 2 years ago, we decided to unite our shared service center in Philippines, which was originally designed to be a transactional English-only 3 shifts, classical low-cost operations, to with our regional service center in Budapest. And both of them honestly departed since that original request. Budapest became much more worldwide. We have about 10% of the operations that's not only for Europe, Middle East, Africa. And our Cebu, Philippines center got a lot of high value added activities. And right now we operate together in the GBS organization. And within that organization, I'm running the Budapest center.
Sorry, I always have to unmute myself. It sounds very exciting. Thank you very much, Peter. Csaba, please introduce yourself and your history in BSCs, GBS, and what you're doing now as an expert.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys, again for the invitation. Really happy to participate in this summit with the fellow colleagues in the panel. Regarding myself, I got experience in consultancy and corporate side, mainly in the last decade or so, specialized in shared services, especially shared services setup. And in this panel, as Richard told you already, I'm participating as an independent expert. So let me concentrate, first of all, for you, the helicopter view of Hungary regarding shared services with some international flavors. So basically in Hungary, we got a little bit more than 100 shared services, more than 50,000 employees working within. The interesting part is that 60% of these organizations are above 7 years old. So the maturity is showed, and this is something I think why other centers are joining. And you just heard one of the recent from Sanofi. So regarding to the heavy Budapest head shared services tower, we are building up tier 2 locations such as Szeged and Debrecen and other cities, which is great to see. And this is important, not by accidentally from VCP perspective as well, and having a joint effort. My experience is, that the transactional activities is, let's say, as a trend is for the past. So what you can see now in Hungary and certainly in the CEE region as well is more about the value-add activities. From the value-add activities as a trend is there. However, if you look at different statistics, usually half of the centers reported that 75% transactional and 25% knowledge-based activities are done there, which means that there's a lot of way to go, because only 1% globally saying that they are fully knowledge management centers. So there's a lot to do. The good thing is that 80% of these centers are having intention to move to that era. Regarding to the model, there are many SSCs, BSCs, GBSs, but if you look at the model itself, the giants, 70% of these giants was getting 25 billion revenue or more. They're going with the GBS model, which is again showing the nice trend. Others are still functional, regional, or finding the approach to be a truly GBS. But there's the way in the future. The new joiners in Hungary, right? So year on year, the average is 8 to 10%. What we could see so far, just because of the the nice talent, the infrastructure, the office, and the IT, and not to mention that the Europe leading corporate income tax, which is 9%. So there's a lot of booster there. From scope perspective, you can see the classics, right? And you could hear that as well. And this is a global trend too, not just in Hungary, that finance, IT, procurement, and customer care are taking the lead. But what is interesting that the first time in history, is reported that different services as AI and digital services appeared into the portfolio of these centers, which would showing a great trend there, that how the shared services can drive basically the digital transformation among the corporate firms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Csaba. As I mentioned, you are at different stages of your lifetime or lifespan in different centers. And when you set up the center, you created a strategy. That strategy is implemented throughout the years. It is being modified. But now we had a strange situation over the last 2-3 months, as you know, as we all know, from home. We are talking now from home again. So how did it change? Where were you at in the implementation of your strategy? We heard some information, but then this situation, how did it change? Did it change your strategy, your execution of your work, and your managerial attitude or approach? Please, Balázs from Sanofi.
Yes, thanks. As we said at the beginning, we are in the early phase, in the transition phase, building up the center. I mean, our strategy that was also just described, the different phases, the different models. I mean, we are targeting to have high value add activities. Meanwhile, we are also performing some of the transactional activities. This has been when Sanofi decided, or our strategy was to build up the center, the decision was made whether we insource and manage processes fully end-to-end, or we outsource. In our previous model, we outsourced some transactions, some sub-processes, but we also recognize that if you want to leverage and you consider automation, then you need to have the full end-to-end ownership of the processes. So we decided, it has been decided that either we do a full outsourcing of certain services, which we did for purchase to pay. We went for an external provider globally. While for our the financial part, account to report, and customer invoice to cash, I explained, we insourced the activities that were outsourced. The purpose is to really have a full end-to-end ownership and to leverage on the competence and the skills that we are building up. And I mentioned COEs when I talk about digitalization, robotics, as well as partnering with ITS, really to maximize the benefits what we can achieve. So our strategy is clearly continues the way we execute. We want to build up the process excellence, the processing excellence, the service excellence. But next to that, we build up the process skill and the automation, robotics, digital skills in order to eliminate the low value add activities and enable our operation to focus on high value add activities. The way how if we were looking about the traditional way, just let's take some people over from a high-cost country to a low-cost country. This was definitely not our choice. Otherwise, we would have done Budapest Center 3 years back when Sanofi Business Services was funded. So there has been quite a work done to define what is the core model. What's our target operating model that we follow globally standards? Because if you don't reach standards, you cannot reach efficiencies, and you cannot do automation, or it costs a fortune that will never pay back. So we are in the middle of not only a transition to Budapest, but also a transformation to reset our organization, our processes in the countries, and the part that is going to be in Budapest. So that's not a one-to-one transition in that sense, but we are implementing new standard processes with the objective of having the competency here on the process side, having the competency in the center on the digitalization, on the robotic side. We object to get to automate and reduce the repetitive low-end activities. So this strategy for us continues the way we started. We believe that could be an advantage now. We were not the first ones in the industry or in this segment getting to a GBS model. I think it's a majority of many companies have already done it, but at least we want to jump, make a leapfrog, and not start from a standard getting labor arbitrage and then start to improve the processes, but already implement a very standard way, whereas we can utilize the latest technology now. Also, this is our recent development is that we added the ITS hub, as I mentioned to you, that we need to get the proximity, the partnership to fully utilize the skills we have. And I think once we have all established, then this is what will be the second phase or the next phase of the maturing, when we have the processes, the data, and all the skills to look into business intelligence, to understand the data and get close to the business, to be able to utilize and contribute to the strategy, having the data analytics skills, and this is the ultimate goal, that we can develop to the way that these skills, these functions, we can implement. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself because I got a message that I have to mute my microphone. Sorry. The same question goes to István. You had a strategy, you took over your role, you are implementing that strategy, you are putting into execution, but there was this situation when the workload changed, the way of working changed. How it changed your strategy and the implementation of your strategy, and how do you operate with this different approach? What are the gaps?
So, yeah, so for Eaton, the maturity model, we are somewhere in the middle of this model, and we were fragmented, and it means that the functional activities in finance, customer care, and some others were essentially linked to those areas which are manufacturing or close to manufacturing areas, and we have more than 180 different manufacturing, distribution center, sales office type of areas in the region, and all of these were linked, physically linked to these areas and serving a small areas, small location geographical areas. Now it started to put together similar activities into this center in the past years, and consolidation started. Consolidation of those activities that we think can be managed on the same way, and leveraging the economies of scale for the first of all for the highly transactional services, while we started to build more value add, non-typical non-typical transactional jobs and activities in the center. We have legal, we have audit, we have tax, treasury, and the global roles as well. So with this multifunctional operational model, what we have today, it's a mix, and this is why I said we are somewhere in the middle, because more like finance and IT are a bit ahead of the others, and there are some others who are still in a consolidation phase. And important is, and the important was, and it continues on the people side. So we hire good people who can have the necessary experience, and of course the languages and the skill set to manage these things, which is moving more to the value add side, and the non-value add, let's call it non-value add, more transactional things, we tend to push out either to a BPO organization, or eliminate or make it better with process automation or process standardization, because Hungary and especially this region in Budapest area, not the lowest cost anymore. So we need to think about how to build and maintain the scale that, on one hand, we have activities that need to be run on a better way and a cheaper way. On the other hand, we need to propose something to the people which is again a value add activity, and create more value. So that's that started some years ago, and this operational excellence is the keyword which will go on with the process efficiency. And with the new situation with the COVID, we think it's important to think about productivity more than before, because the productivity focus is coming together with a really strong cost push and expectation how we manage the bottom line cost, even in a cost center side, and making sure that the customer value is increasing for including the stakeholders, and also in terms of this productivity, the efficiency will be there, and it's important. Every day we are looking at, and also we do it together because it's more and more important, because in this isolated way of working is not the one what we get used to in the past 10 20 years. So the power of one is the approach what we tend to do in order to make sure we have a great place to work. Now it's mentally difficult to accept, but very soon we tend to go back to the office, because this is really important from a connectivity standpoint.
Thank you very much, István. It's very interesting. Thank you. Peter, the same applies to you. Your organization is a bit more older. How do you see this question of gap between the strategy you had and the implementation, and then what happened throughout the last few months, how it changed your mentality, your way of managing your center? What are the differences?
Not as radically as I thought. So the transition to remote work was very smooth and easier than we ever imagined. I mean, really, within one day we did it. We had 5 years of experience with homework, which was not very popular with all the stakeholders when we introduced it. Everybody has a laptop. Everybody who has experience of working from home. We have a BCP. We tested it multiple times, and all of these boring things, they pay back when you have to go. I also have to compare with our shared service center in Philippines. Our colleagues there didn't have a home office policy for historical reasons, and a quarter of the people don't have internet at home. Luckily, they already had laptops. But I mean, we shouldn't take these things for granted. We live in a first world infrastructure, and it does make a very big difference. In Philippines, we needed literally heroes to make it work. And by the way, it's amazing. They made it work in a week, from 0 to 100% in a week, without any experience, with more than 1,000 people. But that, looking from the other way around, I think we need to appreciate the type of infrastructure and setup that we have in Central Eastern Europe. I mean, most companies I'm talking to, nobody enjoyed this transition, but everybody could do it very quick and had relatively little problem. VPN was working, computers were working, everything was working. So of course we would like to be back, but not such a big change as I thought. Then structurally, we continue to doing the same. Cost is very important. From high value add, I can second whatever Balazs and István already said about the high value add activities. Just the difference with Lexmark, that we started with that from the very beginning, not because we were so smart or forward looking, but because we already had a center in the Philippines. So whatever was transactional and we could do in Philippines or thought we could do it, we already moved it there. And it's the leftover that came to Budapest, which we believed is not a good fit in offshore. It's better to have near shore. So we continue doing that. I think the time of the huge transitions, when you move 100 people from A to B, that's over. The positions we are moving are few in number, but very critical and important. Again, to second István, we also have very, very corporate type of positions there. I mean, half of the world's comp and ban, for example, is in Budapest. There's just 2 people, but that's very important. And there are dozens of examples of that in the finance area, in supply chain area, and elsewhere. So we have a worldwide process owner and sub-process owner roles in Budapest. So those are good things. We continue our road towards the GBS. Having Cebu, Philippines, and Budapest, Hungary working isolated is not the, as Csaba mentioned, GBS is the way to go. There is very little debate in the industry about it. Within all companies I've talked to, ours is not an exception. It's a bit political as well, how you move from one model to another, when function owns the towers, or if somebody else owns those activities. Those are teams, those are R&Rs, those are egos. We are managing that transition right now in the middle of it, 50-50. We're also in the middle of a big CRM system implementation. We go to Microsoft Dynamics from Siebel. Siebel is great, but that's a legacy system, and we are moving to Dynamics. That takes a lot of resources. So honestly, we don't really do anything differently. We do the same stuff with a little bit more effort now because of the virus.
Thank you. It's interesting and nice to hear that. Thank you very much, Peter. Csaba, the same question to you. Having a managerial experiences now as an expert, how do you see this for the companies in Hungary? How it's changed? How do you think so?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'll a little bit concentrate on, let's say, the before the crisis and after the crisis kind of situation here. So if you look at, Hungary as well before the crisis, and there will be a big survey by HOA and HIPA, and it's been reported that roughly 75% of the shared services in planning a growth, and they had a growth agenda ahead, which is the classic way, right? So process maturity, more value-add activities, and growing, and potentially moving to new business service models. Certainly, when the crisis hit, right, they more turned to the, of course, naturally for health and safety for people, making sure that everybody kind of retained as golden sources and business continuity more than ever. So I would say that within the corporate firms, most of the cases working from home and remote working was not an issue. So they relatively could quickly kind of step into the issue. But for the more conservative ones, because there's been as well in the market who just rarely allowed this, they needed to react quickly, and not technically, but more, let's say, from mentality perspective and management perspective. The other good thing is that even internationally as an outlook, after the crisis, roughly 75% of these organizations reported that they could keep their SLAs, and their capacity was maybe 10% down, but still they could manage it. As the months passed by, we could feel a little bit of melting, let's put it on that way, and rethinking of the certain SLAs. With the different phases, just say, as of the virus or the recovery as well, coming back. Usually it's not kind of emphasized, but depends on the industry which a shared service operates in, right? Because some of the industries been hit harder than others, and there's been, let's say again, international survey showing that 15% of the shared services released employees, right? And I'm talking about the wider scale. In Hungary, there's been maybe one, which I know about it. There's been such restrictions. But 39% reported that, yes, they decreased, the different working hours or even payments. Look at the merits or the bonuses, how they contributed. And the recovery of these industries, shared services will pay their part. Nevertheless, to say that cost consciousness certainly is something which in the past been, let's say, always in the first among the top 3 as a scope for shared services. And the last few years, it went down to the second, and effectiveness and quality became the first one. Now what we see is again coming back. The cost one is the first one, and contribution to the corporate firm. But still, there is strong still the excellence and the quality. Without those, you cannot really move on. The unemployment is again another thing, but we need to talk about it. That in Hungary there has been roughly 3-4% in the past. After the crisis hit hard, 6 to 7%, and this is just likely statistically a little bit maybe more, which can be also, let's say, if I may, on this way, an effect on the attraction and retention for shared services. So maybe new way of doing things needs to be implemented. What we see here. So growth, pause, and waiting, that was most of the cases what we have seen, but some of the others who've been, let's say, or could do it without a freeze, they were hiring still, and the talent acquisition was hot. But this is rarely happened. Recalibration, how I would potentially call it nowadays for the shared services industry. Yeah. If you look at we're always talking about post-COVID, but this is more living with COVID until the queue is there. So the business model needs to keep come around that. The top priorities on the strategy, how it's shaped. Well, the top priority became the future of work, right? And then again, shared services get a natural advantage in that. Automation, digitization followed by, which been always a little bit on the agenda for productivity and so on, but it's being kind of accelerated nowadays. Of course, the bottleneck as always, and the gents also mentioned the process maturity, and then how you get there and how you standardize. It takes time. So not just you need only money for automation, but the processes needs to be ready for that. Followed by the skills of digitalization, which is, let's say, again, some time is needed. Only 7% of the organizations reported that they are ready and they are development plans and everything for the new skill set. And last but not least, as a closure, there's been a floating around in the net. I'm sure many of you seen that as a strategic digitalization change agent, which one was the biggest impact, the CEO, the CFO, or COVID? So I leave the answer to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Csaba. Thank you. Very nice summary. Thank you very much. I would go back to Balázs and we get to our last question.
Sir, before the last question, I have one more, because the title of this session is Focus on Hungary, and I'm curious if you consider the fact that you are a local leader in a global service environment, What is the major advantage today of this?
We can go the same order. Csaba. Sorry, Balázs.
Sorry, Balázs, can you please repeat your question?
Yeah, I put also in the chat room. So what do you consider as the major advantage of being a local leader in a global service environment? Because yeah, it's always an issue. If you place a global reader or a foreign reader who is might be a better link for the global environment, or placing a local leader who has a better route in the physical existence of the location. And so what do you see as the major benefit of being a local leader?
The major benefit I would look at least looking at my career. I've been working in international companies for over the last 20 years. So I have very much the corporate mindset. Meanwhile, I have been living in Hungary for most of the time. I think the culture is definitely is a major aspect. I mean, proximity to the organization from a cultural aspect, from a mindset point of view, I think that drives a difference. And this is not good or bad, but somebody with a different history, with a different sense on the people approach, just because of coming from a different environment. So it's not good or bad, but you may not have that proximity, that understanding of the needs for such situation. So we set up different forums with the teams on a weekly basis. We can create understanding the needs. We can create what are those what should be the agenda, what are the questions that are to be responded, and how sensitive to respond that when you have when you belong from the same community. This is what I would look as a major advantage of driving that. Meanwhile, based on your position, experience, and the organizational structure, you can still have a good link to corporate, to your headquarter. Definitely, that might differ if somebody comes from the headquarter, but also in our company, we are new. We did not have the expat, but in other companies when I worked, I had that situation. And Sanofi is very people-centric, and this is part of our strategy, that we have no expats here in Budapest, so not even leaders. But if somebody comes to work in Budapest, that's a great opportunity to learn and develop. But you come to learn to work on a Hungarian contract, because we are a Hungarian unit as part of the big Sanofi family.
Thank you. István, advantages of being a leader in Hungary?
Yeah, really quickly. So many things, but as already mentioned, I would just add the big advantage is the presence itself. So you are here and you are part of a big community like HOA or HIPAA and all these areas, and within the community you meet those people like this, that we can share experiences, best practices, and locally we can share. Of course, today we do it online and we are also isolated and do it on the phone, but still we are living in an environment where we have a better understanding locally, governmental wise, economy wise, and market wise, what the situation is today, and specifically today talking about COVID. Better to have a local leader who can manage it, and not remotely. Travel ban is on, and all these things do not help much with face-to-face and people interactions. So that's why it's even in these critical situations more important to have someone who is having a good understanding what's happening on site, on a specific area, and can translate the global expectations, be a link between the global and the local side. So translate global expectations to a local, and being local, vice versa, can refer what is possible, what is potential advantage, and what are the potential realistic, feasible next steps in terms of building further. And for Eaton, the growth or agenda is still on. It's slowed down now, yes, but it's still something that we will definitely continue, because still the cost and quality balance we would like to leverage on a longer run, and some changes in the structure and the strategy, but still the mainstream will remain. So this is these are the things what I think also important if we are talking about local leader.
Yeah. Very nice, very concise. Thank you. Peter, anything to add, please?
I think I concur with what Balazs and István said. I really believe also the local community is great. If we have a call from a stakeholder asking, can you do X, Y, Z? I mean, there is nothing we couldn't do ever. And what makes it easy that if you are part of the local communities, you go to HA meetings, you go to AmCham meetings, you go to HIPAA meetings, then all you need is, and you network, all you need is to pick up the phone, and there are at least 3 experts whom you could call, fellow GMs or subject matter experts who know that better than you can do, than I do, how to do any new activity. I think this is a really treasured value add. I think the rest of the criteria are pretty much true for the entire Central Eastern Europe, the approach of the people, the mentality, the culture closeness. I don't think those are unique to Hungary. However, and I don't have enough insight to other countries' internal professional communities, but we are a very good one in Hungary. That I can say.
Thank you, thank you. Csaba, would you like to add something? How do you see that?
More or less agree. I would say with everything being said, but might add that if you look at that next to the community part, how the potential growth opportunity in the market. There are certain countries around that who are, let's say, even more mature. But if I may say, the competition is even higher. So for my humble perspective, it's a little bit harder to do business. There are countries who are emerging and will meant, let's say, from 5 to 10 years now, a really strong bound, but stability perspective or scalability perspective or size perspective, then that could be maybe a right here, right now approach. Here, if you look at the skills as well regarding educational systems, there's a lot of talent coming out from universities. And again, the tier 2 cities associated with universities, there's a huge potential to go there, not just for BCP perspective, but to build up a center over there, which would mean that our educational system can feed more in terms of growth. And again, corporate income tax for #1 in Europe with the 9%.
Thank you very much. And now we have 10 minutes left. So somebody was kicked out by the system, but he's coming back. As a last question, there was this non-normal or non situation that we are not used to. What are the experiences you would take on? What is the momentum that gave you to do it differently, to change things? What you're going to include in your operations, and all that you got in this last 2-3 months? How do you see it? Balazs, please.
I would mention 3 topics, and I really try to be very quick as we have a few minutes remaining. I see one is the expertise that we were having is in transition. I mean, we had the belief that you need to go to the country, at least the subject matter experts need to be there, needs to sense what's going on. The bits and pieces to pick up, even though you have processes and systems, there are always bits and pieces. A good experience what we were having, that it can work with Zoom as well. We feel that we would lose very small running it remote. So it was an interesting experiment that you can keep successfully, or we believe we successfully can continue transition, takes longer a bit. we believe there is still a need for a personal contact, but the going to the country may have a different mean. It's building relationship rather than passing over information, because we see the technology can well serve that. Personally, I also feel that even though you don't know the other counterpart, this environment now forces us into letting others into our intimate space. You have your house around you, and all of a sudden you would not let a foreign or not known people into your house. So you don't know the other, you disconnected from the other, but you are somehow in a very strange environment that you are inviting to your home the other person via Zoom and having the conversation. And maybe this intimacy contributes that this can be run successfully. That's on transition. The other one is just simply new ways of working. The office would have a different mean. We need to change the organization. We have also home office. It's really now turns out that you would not come to the office to fill Excel tables. This is you can do at home. The office is more about to interact, collaborate, and use that focus on those activities. The other one I would expect is additional scope. I think in many of us, there is always a belief that things can only be done in the country. I mean, if something could be done now for 2 months, not in the office, but 2 kilometers away from a home, then that might work as well from a Budapest center, 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers away. So my expectation would be out of that in long term to accelerate transition and consolidations. Just in a nutshell, that was the three, and I don't want to steal the time of the others.
Thank you very much. István, what is the momentum, the strength that this situation and the consequences and the lessons learned gave you to improve your management style or to add to your management style or whatever?
Yeah, so really quickly, some things changed, and at Eaton, this remote office and remote work is not really part of the day-to-day life. We have home office once a week, or even another one, so twice a week, fine. But the functions did not really get used to it. The reason is that all these activities were linked to manufacturing, and being in a manufacturing area, most of the things were essentially related and located to the plant. And then the original expectation and the overall expectation, and that the work is happening on the site. So this is the mentality what we are facing every day, and this home office stuff just came into to the picture as part of the SSC environment, which is completely okay. But in this manufacturing mix was not there in the past. Now it's there, and this is a big pilot now, and it worked. So from day 1 to day 2, 100% of the office went home office and worked well. And the situation is that in some cases the SLAs were better than before, and many reasons behind. Don't go into details, but essentially it means that the team cohesion and the performance is still there, and for those areas where the processes are working quite fine or okay, and meeting the level and the target setting what has been agreed with the local market, it's there. On another hand, we need to see what are those roles which can work from home, remote, or even remotely on the longer run. And this is part of this momentum piece I'm taking here, because in the future we will need to think about if we advertise all or just partial of the roles as office roles, or we just start advertising roles which can be maintained remotely on a longer run. So it will definitely have an impact on facility cost, and ensuring that we have a good balance. It's something what we need to go through in the future. Also, the cost is another aspect we need to think about, and now we have a cost pressure. everywhere. It's there, but on a longer run, we can think about facilities. So the sites where we are operating, do we need further expansions in the future, or can we reorganize the site operations on the way that they can be more effective, or if effective enough, using the current space? And this is again a kind of standard and balanced approach what we already started to think about in terms of office and remote.
Thank you very much. So we have 4 minutes left. Peter, the same question. What are you going to use in the future? What you learned here? What is the momentum that this situation gave you?
Clearly, the situation shows that the good managers know how to manage this. Well-working and well-functioning bonded teams, they had little issues staying social. The teams who were not as well bonded, or the managers who are not as advanced in their people skills, they have more difficulties. And just the difference only highlighted this. Nothing is new there. The good ones, always good ones. And it just re-emphasized the importance of people management and team bonding. Especially challenging. We still had a couple of newcomers during the period, and for them it's very difficult to integrate. And these little things that happen at the coffee machine, we did see the value of it. So we don't envision 100% remote even in our extreme scenarios. With that said, I've yet to meet a GBS leader. I had a dozen of calls just in the last 2 weeks. Every single one of us is thinking about how to have more home office than before. The guys who didn't have it will have it. The ones who have it, they want to have more. Everybody. Now we're also starting thinking, as István mentioned, can we make money out of it? Do we really need that big office? And interestingly, it seems like contradictory, but it's not. Office is super important. Where it's located, the quality of the office, it didn't decrease. The quantity is not as important as we thought. So we still think we need to have a high quality office, very good.
Sorry, I think Peter is frozen. So I don't know. I think we should go to Csaba and ask your opinion. How do you think, what are managers taking from this COVID situation as a momentum or a new knowledge what they gained, lessons?
I think that, some of the takeaways.
Sorry, very bad.
Really cool.
Seems that we lost also Csaba.
No, it's just slow. Sorry.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Good. Okay, so the momentum is put on the table, I think, as a learning as well, certain things regarding automation or digitalization or improvement of your businesses, which would mean that roughly, statistics saying that 50% of the organizations are shared service organizations, and including Hungary, they are planning to do automation, but it's, let's be honest, it's freaking expensive. And the ROIs, it takes time. But it's an important factor and you need to push it. So there's a momentum to get money, basically, at the end of the day to cover these. So be quick until the momentum is on. Scope increase, simple as it is. HQ employees are expensive. So there will be new value-add activities coming into the way, just like it's coming from back from India, where we could see examples for BCP. So more potential opportunity for Hungary and Europe. However, nationalism will come in terms of location strategy.
Second, sorry, because we have to finish soon. Sorry about this.
Sure. Virtual models, working from home, the guys told you. And last but not least, the people with the digital skill set, management. So interesting times.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all. And I will pass the word to Balázs to finalize this room. And thank you again for the invitation. Thank you for participating in this panel. Balázs, please.
No much words we have left. So thank you very much for everybody. And we are really curious for all questions that might come up, and we are ready to give answers in the name of the Hungarian Outsourcing Association or directly via the participants of this call. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.